Hey, thanks for joining the Acquirable Podcast. We're at the ACG Middle Market A&D Conference. What's A&D stand for?
A&D, Aerospace and Defense.
That's right. This is Justin, my co-host for today. And Ryan, thanks for spending time with us.
My pleasure.
So Ryan, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners all the time that are looking for irresistible exits and transitioning their business.
Okay.
But one of the things that they are never prepared for is professionalizing their company after they sell.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of these folks, these companies is like an extension of their lives, their families, their slush funds, their travel budgets, all those kind of things.
Absolutely.
And then they sell, and private equity or a strategic comes in and says, wait a minute, we're not going to get to where we want to get to doing it this way.
Yeah.
Enter Ryan and Bob's search.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you do. And then I want to talk a little bit about the process of professionalizing a company when it sells.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan Boyle, I'm the president of Bob's Search. We are a retained executive search firm that focuses exclusively on aerospace, defense, and space. And we work across the gamut of companies within the supply chain. But most of what we do, about 60% of our work, is in private equity-owned businesses. Okay. Most of our work, about 80%, is with businesses below about $500 million in revenue. And even further from that, 150 million or less is about 65% of our work.
So talk about what it's like, because I want our audience is going to be that business owner that's selling, and walk us through that process of going, hey, wait a minute. I think you had shared a little bit of oftentimes wife CFO, brother's head of sales, kids are running part of it. It's like, wait a minute.
Family members in engineering. And you have these companies often have very long tenured employees that have gotten them to where they're at today. I think what I most commonly see with the difference between entrepreneur-owned organizations and when they come out of private equity, when they go through their first sale, their first exit, is the entrepreneur is very hub and spoke. Like they are the central node of the business, and every decision runs through them. And then when private equity comes in and they professionalize the business, you have to get all the accountable people in each functional area and build out that expertise in each functional area. And so a lot of times, the people are, how do I say it? They run to the entrepreneur for all their decision making. The entrepreneur is the ultimate decision maker for everything. And when you bring in a professional CEO from the outside, they have to build out their team. And that's what the professionalization exercise looks like. And it's implementing processes. It's getting everyone in their swim lanes from a functional standpoint, having accountable leaders for each one of those functional areas. And it's a process.
What's the hardest part for that entrepreneur when they have to go through this process? What do they need to be prepared for? How do they need to prepare themselves to go through this?
Well, when they sell, they need to be prepared to let go, and they need to be trusting that they've sold it to the right group that's going to do the right thing, has the right intentions for the business, and then realize that change is going to come.
Yeah.
Change in the team. And, whenever we do that, whenever we're talking with executives and bringing them in, there's a certain tact or pace that we want them to do that with. We want them to do that with the employees gracefully, work with people, try and get them to the next level. And then if people, can't make it to whatever the next level is, then change will occur in the business. And it can be unsettling for people. I mean, for an entrepreneur, the business is an extension of who they are. It's their baby. And I'm sure that can be very uncomfortable. But I think if they watch it through the entire hold period, they'll see that what comes out on the other side is something much greater than they ever could have achieved.
Now, for a lot of entrepreneurs, and jump in whenever you want, I'm just rattling off questions here. But for a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't yet know what a hold period is. Talk to us a little bit about the hold period and what that means and what, because that's a very important part of the process.
Absolutely. So there are kind of three different models that I see of private equity firms out there. There are the publicly traded private equity firms. There are the traditional funds. So they go out, they raise money from LPs. They have a set redemption period where they have to return to their LPs. And then you have the privately held family offices. And each one of those is going to have a different hold period associated with them. So, an entrepreneur, when they're considering who they're selling to, should ask them about what their model is, what it looks like, what their typical hold period is, that sort of thing. A traditional private equity fund, it's going to be like a 5-year type hold. Mm-hmm. A family office could hold it indefinitely or never sell it at all.
Right.
And the publicly traded private equity funds, if they don't have LPs or a fund that they're associated with, they can be sort of a hybrid in between, right? Mm-hmm. Hold it for a long time, or turn it in 5 years. So I think that's a critical thing to look at and be in alignment with.
Yeah.
Is there any specific function that you find is like the biggest gap in professionalization when you come into a founder-owned business?
Well, they've got to get the CEO first, but then very quickly, I think it's the CFO. Private equity firms are all ex-bankers and finance guys by trade. Right. And that rigor of finance is a completely different level from what an owner is looking at. I think some owners, their idea of finance is they look at the bank balance at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month, and did it go up or did it go down?
Exactly.
That's the definition. Did I make money or not?
Yep.
And you get into a private equity situation, and now you've got rolling 13-week cash flows. And you've got full P&L balance sheet, and they are going to be in the details, managing those metrics and managing the business from that aspect.
I think that was one of the hardest things when we raised from a big VC fund, and I couldn't believe how many metrics they wanted to look at. And I'm like, man, we did more deals than we lost. Yeah. And that was kind of where my brain was.
We made money here.
Yeah, we're good to go. It was just so wild to see me have to learn that motion of, wait a minute, all these metrics. And I'm just trying to be the CEO and run the business and have vision and all these things. And it's like, no, man, all these, but they do matter. And I think when you sell, the whole team needs to be prepared. That's one of the things I think we forget when we sell is we're so excited to get the deal done. We're not really thinking about how is this going to impact. Here's a good question. How does a founder prepare their key employees for what's the change that's about to happen in their lives?
Oh boy. That's a tough one. And I think it depends from entrepreneur to entrepreneur. Some people, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are very, very, closed off in terms of the finances. I think anything you could do to be sharing and educating the employee base in advance of that, like, this is the business, this is how it works. Yeah. This is what our profitability is in the business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are scared to share that.
Admit that, right?
Scared to share it with their employees.
Exactly, because a lot of times they don't realize how profitable a business is, and they're going, "Whoa, wait a minute, we have all this profit," but you have to educate them because you're about to get hit by a whole lot of maturation.
Absolutely. So, you're for an entrepreneur, your top table, your top leadership team. If you have key people in that you see really going with the business and driving it forward, the more that you can ingrain them in that and have them being part of the running the business, less control for you, more control and accountability for the employees. Yeah. That would be key. Yeah.
Moving away from that hub and spoke model you're talking about.
The hub and spoke model. That is the textbook definition of what an entrepreneur-owned business looks like.
Give me a story of a group you've worked with that it really went well.
Okay.
And give me one where you were like, man, that did not go well. And that's not a reflection on Bob's search. It's just the situation, but kind of educate us of, through narrative of what that kind of looks like.
Yeah. So we did a president search for a private equity owned business located up in the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. And there were, it had been owned and run by a father. His oldest son was the president, and there were 3 brothers in the business. Oldest son, who was the president, had other ambitions, other things going on in his life. We brought in the president. The VP of sales, one of the other sons, again, had other ambitions in his life. Didn't want to be involved in the business or take it to the next level. The president, we brought in, his guy from his last company. And then we did a search for the engineering leader as well, who was the third brother in the business. That business ended up flipping in about 18 months.
Wow.
Fantastic exit for the private equity fund, fantastic exit for the family that had carry in the deal. And that business is now part of another larger roll-up that's going to be extremely successful. So, I think that was an example of where it went very well. Another example of one that went really well, sort of non-traditional. We had an entrepreneur come to us and say, look, my business is 11, 12 million in revenue. I've done the dance with private equity. I'm not big enough to be a platform. I'm going to be rolled up with someone else, and I have no idea what's going to happen to my team. He hired us to find a COO for him, who ended up actually doing a buyout of him.
Oh, wow.
And keeping the business
That's cool.
going on her own. So now she owns it. That was a great exit.
Absolutely.
For him, right? He, this was his baby.
Yeah.
He didn't want to see it go away, and so that was an alternative that worked really well for him. And then, let's see, on the side that didn't work well, there have been multiple examples, but it's really where it really went back to where the entrepreneur couldn't let go. Wanted to be too involved, or was a roadblock to this. It's like, look, once you
sign
sell
on the dotted line there,
you gotta step back and just let it happen within reason, right? And so I think choosing the right partner up front, very important. Being, very, I guess, open kimono as to what the issues are. If you think that the issues aren't going to be uncovered, that you're
right.
You're wrong.
Sorely mistaken.
You're sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
So I think the more transparent and open you can be about the challenges in the business, the more self-aware you can be about what you're good at, what you're not good at, what the business and the people are good at, what they're not good at. It's a team sport, right? Everyone's trying to achieve the same outcome of making this business much better than it is today.
Very good. Well, listen, if you were to say why Bob Search, there's other search firms out there, or kind of, brag on yourself for a minute. The floor is yours, my friend. Like what makes you guys unique?
So we are an industry specialist. We're functionally agnostic. So when it comes to aerospace, defense, and space, if you need that skill set, and you don't need that in every function, but there are going to be critical functions where you need that. If that's the need, we're an excellent firm for you. And the aerospace and defense supply chain is so complex. There are thousands of companies, and it's so important to get people that are at the right level within the supply chain, the right size of company, the right type of company. And I think when you go with larger firms or people who maybe aren't experts in the industry, dabble in it, you're either all in on aerospace and defense or you're not. And I think that's really the differentiator that we bring. And then for entrepreneurs, for privately owned businesses, we bring a pretty white glove approach, and we'll handhold through it and counsel you. I actually, going back to your question about one that didn't go well, it's because of misalignment between the CEO and the private equity fund. The CEO had a certain vision around the culture, and that wasn't really in alignment with the fund. And we had to do a lot of counseling and coaching between the CEO and between the fund to kind of thread the needle of what was going to work for both parties.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I love that niche, because you're right. You can't just take any manufacturing professional and then shove them into aerospace and defense, because it's such a specific industry and takes such technical knowledge.
Totally.
Like the fact that you focus in on it is genius.
Yeah, I've seen some. So outside of aerospace and defense, you can go to some other highly regulated industries. Like we've seen people from medical device make decent transitions into aerospace and defense, high quality, highly regulated, that sort of thing. But at the leadership level, you gotta know.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for the private equity funds to know as well. If I've heard horror stories of generalist private equity funds that come into aerospace and defense for the first time, and they try and take some playbook from another industry,
Right.
and if you think you're going to treat Boeing the way that you have treated, you've dealt with customers in
Right.
other industries.
Right.
Again, you are sorely mistaken. That is not going to work
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. Very
So,
interesting.
it's kind of one of those markets where you're either all in it or you're not.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend dabbling in it.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, thank you so much, man, for taking
thank
time.
you.
And I
My
think this
pleasure.
is so educational for folks that's the heart of this podcast, is just getting out in front of the experience you're about to have and get as much education as you can. So you go, oh my gosh. And I have no doubt that folks listening to today are going to go, those are good things for me to think about, from the partnerships to the hold periods to how to prepare my employees for this experience. And clearly having somebody like you on the side would go a long way.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you too.
Okay.